Messages. Okay. Okay. We're reading chapters 9 through 11 of On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. We're going to start in 2 minutes. I don't know if my live chat is on or not, so I guess we'll find out. But yeah. All right. Hello. Thank you so much for coming. We're reading chapters 9 through 11, starting at, I think we're going to do 533. Yeah. So this is chapters 9 through 11 of the first book. And yeah, it should be good. So it looks like my chat is on for now. I'm not entirely sure that it won't get disabled, so we will try our best to keep that on. But great, that is great. Well, yeah, I love this little section, especially with the Sea Dragon song, which is chapter 10. So yeah, we're gonna be reading all 3 of those. So it should be great. Waiting for a few more people to join just so we can start, but either way, if people join or not, we're going to start at 5:33. So should be good. 1 more minute to go. And let me just make sure this is going to stay on. All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I got it for Christmas. Show every message. Okay. Like 1 more minute. I'm also assuming some people will join as we go along, but I just wanted to give a second just in case anybody else wanted to join. But yeah, if anybody is watching with their books, you can open. It is page 46, chapter 9 is where we're starting. Okay. Let me make sure I have... Three people are here now. That is amazing. So, okay, it is 5:33. Chapter 9, The Glipper Trail. Sorry. When they were back in the open street, 2 of the 3 children and Nugget felt a little better. Lily was mostly happy that Nugget was fine, Tink was mostly glad that Lily was fine, and Janner was mostly terrified because he was the oldest and had begun to think of the future. He knew Glipwood was a small town, and it would be only a matter of time, maybe hours, maybe just minutes, before the Fang called Slarb and his companion reported back to Commander Norm. Then terrible things would follow. "We have to go home." "Aw, Janner," Tink wailed, already on the next adventure. "Can't we see the dragons? Everyone's there, and as soon as the moon rises—" "By the time the moon rises, you know what's going to happen?" Janner said hotly. Lily and Tink were silent as they made their way through Glipwood's empty main street. Janner tried to calm himself down. "What's going to happen, other than the sea dragons dancing, is that those 2 fangs will wake up, and when they do, every fang in Glipwood will be looking for 3 kids and a little black dog. Oh, and the girl has a lame leg. Now tell me, do you think they'll have a hard time finding us?" Janner finished, more irritated than when he began. "What do we do?" Lily asked after a long pause. "Mama will be at the cliffs watching the dragons, but that will probably be the first place that the fangs would look for. Poto always stays home on Dragon Day, so that's where we're going. Poto will know what to do." Janner set his face for the lane that led to the cottage. "I hope he does." "Here." Tink wrapped Lily's other arm around his neck and picked up his pace. Nugget trotted along beside them very seriously, as if he too had realized it was a bad situation indeed. The light deepened as they hurried on, so they were still an arrow's shot away from the cottage. They already knew that their grandfather wasn't home. No lantern burned in the window, no smoke lifted lazily out of the chimney. Janner stopped, and Tink with him, as they sat Lily down on the grass, each bending over to catch their breath. "Where do you suppose he is?" Tink said between gulps of air. "Don't know," Janner said, pacing. "I know, me too. Maybe he went to see the dragons this year." Tink was doubtful. "But he never goes to the cliffs on Dragon Day," Lily said, puzzled. "Why would he go this time?" "Well, why wouldn't he be here at the cottage?" Tink asked. "I think we should look for him at the cliffs. Then we might see the dragons after all." A glare from Janner cut him off. Janner looked east in the direction of the sea. Maybe Tink was right. Maybe for some reason Poto had decided to watch the dragons this year. "Fine," he said, "but we're taking the Glipper Trail. We can't risk the main road. There are probably fangs everywhere. The Glipper Trail's faster anyway." Tink moaned, but already Janner was helping Lily towards the trail. An old walking path led through the trees behind the Igabay cottage and wound precociously near the edge of the cliffs. In the deepening shadows, the children made their way through the trees. When they emerged, the view was terrible and vast, shale and tough. Grass littered the rocky verge of the land. The horizon was silent and wide, and a salty wind sighed upwards their ankles and through their hair. The children stood without speaking, dizzy with the smallness they felt looking out over the dark sea of darkness. Janner looked to his right and could make out a precarious trail winding over stone and brush, leading away to where the people would be watching the dragons. The Glipper Trail stayed mostly level on a narrow shelf, while the ground nearer the tree line rose steeply above them. Wiry shrubs and roots clutched the rock wall as if they too were afraid of falling. "Janner, I can't do this," Tink said. He was standing with his back against the gray rocks, eyes clenched shut. "You have to," Janner said. "The things that might find us on the road are more dangerous than this trail right now. The things that might find us on the road are more dangerous than this trail right now. You have to try, Tink." Using the nearby boulders for support, Lily hopped back to him and took his hand. "Come on," she said. Tink jerked his hand away and forced a smile. "I'm not really worried, you know," he said with sudden bravado. "I just meant that, I don't think Lily should be out here." "Oh, thank you," said Lily wryly. Tink sighed and peeled his fingers from the rock. He inched along behind Lily and Janner, careful to stay as far as possible from the edge. As the light faded, the trail rose and narrowed. Lily picked her way across, but Janner had to stop now and again for Tink to gather the courage to follow. Janner kept looking back to be sure that Lily was able to navigate the trail without her crutch. With Nugget at her side and all manners of roots and rocks to hold, she seemed more like she was taking a stroll through a park than edging along a perch above the dark sea. Finally, they topped the rise in the trail, and it widened out to a grassy slope. Janner and Lily tried not to laugh when Tink burst ahead of them and paced the safe ground. His shirt was drenched in sweat, and he was strutting like he had just won a race. "Yay!" Ahead and below them, Janner saw the glow of torches where the people were gathered to watch the dragons. "We made it," Janner said. "Tink, help me with Lily." As they scrambled up the slope around the throng, the moon began its soft ascent. Then they heard the most achingly beautiful sound in all of Arear. Chapter 10. Lily and the Dragon Song. A long, warm note like the sound of a yawning mountain rose in the air and bounced off the belly of the sky. The deep echo was absorbed by the tall trees of Glipwood Forest and was answered a moment later by a higher sound that felt like a soft rain. Even Janner forgot to worry over the fangs for a moment. His chest tightened and his eyes strung with tears. "Quick," Tink said. "It's starting." Tink ran ahead dangerously close to the cliff. His fear of heights was all but gone. "Tink," Janner called, but there was no stopping Tink. The sound of the dragons had changed him somehow. Janner even thought for a moment that he looked different, boldly making his way along the precipice. Janner and Lily moved as quickly as they dared till they would make out the dark clustered people watching the ocean below them. The verge of the cliffs were cluttered with boulders between patches of tall grass, places where one could sit and comfortably watch the sea. The dark sea was far below that it seemed if someone were to tumble over the cliff, they would have time to stop screaming and take a final breezy nap before crashing into it. Tiny silent streaks of white on the surface was actually chaotic waves smashing into the jagged rocks below. And the mightiest spray was only faintly visible, like a poof of dust from a pebble dropped in the sand. Janner and Lily found Tink sitting on a flat outcropping of rock that depressed in the center. They were still an arrow's shot away from the crowd, enough to satisfy Janner that they were well hidden. By the light of the big moon, Tink leaned out over the edge, straining to see something in the dark water below. How could this be, Jenner thought, when just this morning Tink had nearly wet himself on the roof of the house? From where they sat, they could see the mighty Fingat Falls far to the north, roaring over the cliffs and pounding into the sea. To the south, the cliffs marched away in the distance when they eventually curled backwards and sloped downward to embrace Shard Harbor, home to Fort Landron, the largest Fang outpost in all of Scree. Hello. It was there the black carriage bore the children taken in the night. Janner shuddered and tried not to think about Fort Landron or the carriage. Wasn't hard because the dragon song was rising in pitch and forgot about their desperate need to find their grandfather and mother. And like Tink, he forgot his precariousness of the edges of the high cliffs as he leaned out over the empty air and felt his heart ache. Tink was the first to see them. His breath caught in his throat and he couldn't speak. He tapped Lily on the knee with the back of his hand and pointed. She and Janner saw it as well. In the churning white waters at the base of Fingat Falls, a long, graceful shape burst from the surface. Its skin caught and magnified the light of the moon. The sea dragon was easily twice the height of the tallest tree in Glipwood Forest. Its reddish body glimmered like a living fire. The head was crowned with two... Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. The head was crowned with two curved horns, and its fins spread out behind it like wings. Indeed, it looked as if it might actually fly. But the dragon wheeled in the air and crashed into the sea, with what must have been sound like thunder, but was inaudible over the constant roar of the waterfall. At that moment, the dragon rose again in the air on a bright wind, and filled the people gathered on the cliffs with 1,000 feelings, some peaceful, some exhilarating, all more alive than usual. A middle-aged man named Robespus Nicefellow, who had spent his life balancing records for the famed button merchant Osbecken of Torborough, decided he wouldn't spend one more day working behind a desk. He had always wanted to sail. Mr. Alec Broom, who was sitting beside Farinia Swappleton, proprietor of Farinia's flower shop, turned to her and whispered that he'd secretly loved her for years. Mayor Blagus silently swore he'd never again pick... Mayor Blagus silently swore he'd never again pick his nose. Mayor Blagus broke his vow on the walk back to town. All of the passion and sadness and joy of those who listened wound into one common strain of feeling that was to Janner like homesickness, though he couldn't think why. He was just a short walk from the only home he'd ever known. The few Fangs, unlucky enough to stand watch at the cliffs, however, heard only screeching, a miserable wail that set their teeth on edge. Their green skins shivered and they snarled and hissed at the people closest to them. Tink was leaning so far over the edge that it looked like he might fall off to the sea. Eyes wide open, his jaw was clenched and his knuckles were white, where they gripped the rock at his sides. Janner had the strange thought that he looked like a statue of a king, perched there so rigid and serene in the warm dusk. The song continued, and more dragons exploded out of the water. They spun in the air and hung there for a moment before slamming back into the sea. Scores of horned bull dragons, amber and shimmering gold, swam circles around the thinner and more sleek mares that burst out of the water. And over them in an intricate pattern. Now even the roar of Fingat Falls was not as loud as the crash of the many dragons into the dark sea. The strains of the song intertwined and followed one another until a haunting melody emerged. Janner thought as he thought every summer in the dragons came, that there would be nothing more beautiful in all the world. Lily was still as a statue, her hands clasped at her chest. Janner heard a whisper of sound mingling with the dragon song as her lips moved, like she was trying to remember the words to a song, or like she was praying. Her gaze was far away, resting somewhere beyond the dragons. A slight sweet melody, the beauty of which Janner had never heard before, drifted from Lily's mouth. Janner looked at her with wonder. He was so enthralled with her song, he scarcely noticed that after a moment it was all he heard. The dragons had fallen silent. They had halted their dance and were gazing up at the cliffs. Though they were leagues among and the dusk made it difficult to see, Janner knew with a shudder that the sea dragons were watching them. They were listening. Oh, Halore, lay thee low, hello, dark in the deep. Down beneath the earth you go, Halore, fast asleep. Fast asleep, dark Halore in the deep. Rise again now, spring abundant, render green the dying bough, raise the yock where Jurgen fell, raise the rock, rock, spring abundant, hollow. A breezy sound of gasps and whispers rose from the crowd. In all the years the dragons had come, this was something new. Tink and Janner looked in awe at Lily, who seemed unaware of the quiet commotion that was causing. The wind carried Lily's voice along the cliffs. So it seemed to the crowd that was the song was coming from the air itself. Finally, her song ended. Lily came to herself and focused on the shimmering beasts below her, silent and watching. For a moment, the only sound was the wind and the sea and the distant waterfall. Then the dragons arched their great necks, spread wide their fins, and bellowed an answer that rattled Janner's teeth. It echoed Lily's tune, a hopeful reprise. Then it stopped. The dragons were gone as far as they had come, as fast as they had come. The last fin disappeared in a swirl of water. Only the dull, even rush of Flingap Falls and the occasional cry of gull interrupted the awed silence. Mr. Alep Broom blew his nose. Whispers turned into hushed voices, which finally became the chattering of the multitude standing and stretching, then turning to walk back to town. The moment was over. The dragons would make their way, so people said, back to the sunken mountains to live out their winter. Tink was still staring at the sea, at the place where the last dragon had sunk away. He blinked several times and came out of a trance of his own. He looked down, his face turned pale, and he squealed like a flabbit. He skittered back and lay panting on the ground 5 feet away, clutching the grass as if the world might lurch to its side and try to shake him over the edge. Lily giggled, her head full of music. "What was that, Lily?" Jenner asked. "Who's Jurgen?" She shrugged, blushing. "I don't know. I think it's a song Mama used to sing me when I was little. Something like that, anyways." She scrunched her face up, thinking hard. "It's odd," she said. "I can't remember it now," said Lily, looking out at the dark sea. "Well, it was really pretty." Janner didn't know what else to say. He was about to suggest that they find Poto and their mother when two cold hands grabbed him from behind. Janner was spun violently around to find himself face to face with Slarb the Fang, who had a swelling, bleeding wound on the side of his scaly face. Okay. Well, next chapter will be A Crow for the Carriage. So, I love the Sea Dragon chapter. It's definitely different than how it is in the show, but much like everything else in the show, it's different. But I think it's just the song is so beautiful, especially in perspective of knowing like it came from Anira and their culture and who they are. It's just really cool. So I love, 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 love that chapter, especially with the sea dragons. And I think that where we're going in the book, we're finally getting closer to the climax of our story, you know? So really excited for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be going live again tomorrow, either at 5:30 or 8:30. I love you guys so much. Thanks for watching. Bye.